the moment that changed everything. The rain had just begun to fall when the city's most expensive car cut through the traffic like it owned the road, headlights blazing, engine humming with careless power. People turned to look not because it was beautiful, but because it demanded attention. Inside sat Rayan Blackwood, the arrogant, reckless son of one of the city's most feared millionaires. To Rayan, the streets were nothing more than a playground, and the people crossing them were obstacles that should move faster. His phone buzzed with messages from friends, laughing emojis flashing as he sped through a yellow light, his mind fixed on a party waiting for him at a luxury hotel. He never saw the woman step off the curb. The impact was sudden, brutal, and final in its silence. Tires screeched. A body rolled across the wet asphalt. The car stopped, not out of regret but out of shock. For a split second the world held its breath. Then screams filled the air. Rayan stumbled out of the car, anger already rising before fear, his designer shoes splashing, into a puddle as he looked down and saw a pregnant woman, clutching her stomach, her face pale, eyes wide with terror and pain. Blood mixed with rain on the road. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. Another voice cried that the baby, someone please think of the baby. Rayan felt a flicker of panic, but it was quickly smothered by something darker, entitlement. His father's name echoed in his mind like armor. Nothing ever touched him. Nothing ever would. The woman's name was Amina Hale, though Rayan didn't know that then. She was 7 months pregnant, returning home from a late hospital checkup, one hand on her belly, whispering reassurances to the life growing inside her. Pain ripped through her body, but worse than the pain was the fear that flooded her heart. She gasped for air, tears streaking down her face as strangers knelt beside her, trying to help. Through the blur, she saw the young man standing over her. His expression twisted, not with concern, but irritation. When she tried to speak, only a broken whisper came out. My baby. Rayan scoffed, running a hand through his hair. Why were you crossing like that? He snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the rain. The crowd froze. Someone shouted back at him, calling him heartless. Another person filmed on their phone. Rayan noticed the camera and straightened his posture, slipping into the confident mask he had worn his whole life. Relax, he said loudly. My lawyers will handle it. The words landed like stones. Amina closed her eyes, clutching her stomach as another wave of pain hit. In that moment, she didn't care about him, his car, or his money. She only prayed her child would survive. An ambulance arrived, lights flashing red and blue against the gray sky. Paramedics moved quickly, lifting Amina onto a stretcher, oxygen mask pressed to her face. As they rushed her away, she whispered a name, her husband's name, over like a lifeline. Rayan barely noticed. He was already on the phone, his voice low and urgent. Dad, there's been an accident. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Someone got hit. A pregnant woman. He paused, listening, his jaw tightening. Then he nodded. I know. I'll do exactly that. By the time police arrived, Rayan was calm again. He gave a statement polished with half-truths and practiced confidence. Witnesses argued, voices raised. But the moment Rayan's last name was spoken, the tone shifted. Officers exchanged looks. Papers were shuffled. The city knew the Blackwoods. Deals were made in quiet rooms. Rayan was allowed to leave, his car towed, his future seemingly untouched. As he walked away, he didn't look back. At the hospital, Amina was rushed into emergency care. Doctors worked fast, their voices tense, machines beeping like ticking clocks. She drifted in and out of consciousness, one hand gripping the thin hospital sheet, the other resting protectively over her belly. Hours passed before a doctor finally spoke the words she had been praying for. The baby was alive but fragile. Amina wept silently, relief and fear tangled together in her chest. When she was finally allowed to rest, she reached for her phone with trembling fingers and sent a single message to her husband. I've been hit by a car, hospital, please come. Her husband, Daniel Hale, received the message in a place no one would expect, a secure facility, on the outskirts of the city, guarded, silent, and hidden from public view. Daniel read the words once, then twice. His face didn't change, but the air around him seemed to harden. Without a word, he stood up. The men around him, men who were trained to read danger in the smallest movements, noticed immediately. One of them asked if everything was okay. Daniel looked up, his eyes cold, focused, and filled with something that made even seasoned professionals uneasy. My wife has been hurt, he said calmly. Prepare the car. Back at the Blackwood mansion, Rayan poured himself a drink, hand shaking just enough to spill a few drops. He told himself it was over. Accidents happened. Money erased mistakes. His father had always said that. Still, the image of the woman on the road flickered in his mind. The way she had looked at him, not with hatred but with desperate fear. He downed the drink and laughed it off, calling a friend to brag about how easily things would disappear. "You'll see," he said. "By tomorrow no one will even remember her name." He was wrong. Late that night, a black car pulled into the hospital parking lot without sirens, without noise. Daniel stepped out, his presence quiet but commanding. Doctors recognized him instantly, not from tabloids or magazines, but from whispered conversations and sealed files. He was not a celebrity. He was something far more dangerous, a man whose power operated in shadows. When he reached Amina's room, he took her hand gently, his tough exterior cracking just enough to let fear show through. She opened her eyes and managed a weak smile. "The baby," she whispered. "Still fighting," he replied, his voice steady. "Just like you." As she drifted back to sleep, Daniel stood there for a long time, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor. Then he turned and walked out, pulling out his phone. He made one call, then another. Names were spoken. Information requested. The city's invisible machinery began to move. The next morning, Rayan woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages. His hangover faded as unease crept in. Something felt off. When he finally answered his phone, his assistant's voice was tight with panic. "Sir, there's a problem. The woman you hit, her husband has been asking questions." Rayan rolled his eyes. "So, let him ask." There was a pause. Then the assistant swallowed hard. "Sir, you really need to come in. You need to know who he is." Rayan laughed, confident as ever, unaware that the truth was already closing in around him like a trap. The truth about the pregnant woman's husband, a truth powerful enough to shatter privilege, silence arrogance, and leave even a millionaire's son frozen in fear. And if you want to find out what happens next, how this truth explodes into the open and changes everything, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications and stay with us, because Chapter 2 will reveal the secret that no amount of money can hide.